Okay guys, so we're going to start off with jump rings, and you are going to need the following tools. So you're going to need your sandpaper, you're going to need your thinner wire that's in your bag, you're going to need needle nose pliers, which kind of look like these, needle nose pliers, flush cutters, okay, yours might be like more diagonal nippers, they work the same. Round nose pliers, they're round, okay? And later on, you're going to need these nylon pliers. Each table bin has 1 nylon pliers in them. We'll talk about that later. Okay, so in your bag, you have 2 different wires. One is thinner, one is thicker. And when we talk about the thinness or thickness of wire or sheet metal in jewelry, we are talking about the gauge. The gauge dictates, the gauge number dictates how thin or thick that metal is. The thinner the metal, the higher the gauge number. So this is 20 gauge wire. The other piece that you have in there is 18 gauge wire. It's a little bit thicker, okay? So put the 18 gauge wire in your bag off to the side. We're just gonna be focusing on the brass 20 gauge today, okay? All right, so the very first thing that you wanna do is make a few loops, okay? So I'm gonna take my piece of wire and my round nose pliers. I'm going to grab my wire in the needle nose, excuse me, in the round nose pliers, so that the wire is down, in your case, so from here it's from the top, okay, but it's down, and the top part of this wire is flush, so it's not sticking out, okay? Now, if I want to make teeny tiny jump rings, I can go to this end. If I want to make bigger jump rings, I'm going to go to this end because these these round nose are tapered, okay? So the closer to the nose, the end here you're going to be, the tighter the loops will be. The further closer to the handle, the bigger the loops will be. We're going to go right in the middle for what we're doing today. So I'm grabbing this, and then as I'm going to hold the wire, and I'm turning or rotating these pliers away from me. Now notice I'm still pulling the wire so it's nice and tight against the round part of the pliers. Okay, and I'm just turning my pliers around. I'm going to open my pliers and turn my pliers. I'm going to keep turning and opening and turning. And what's happening is I'm grabbing that wire and I'm pulling it nice and tight against the pliers, but also nice and tight next to the wire. So they're not on top of each other, they are literally next to each other. So I am gonna do about 2 to 3 loops total. So yours should look something like this, okay? Once I've done that, I'm going to cut off this little tail because I need the rest of the wire for later with my flush cutters. Put that wire to the side, and now I have a couple loops here with my jump rings, okay? I'm going to take my flush cutters and I'm going to go across the entire 2 or 3 loops that I have here. And I don't want, you know, when you cut things, cut metal, sometimes the metal goes flying. I don't want it to do that. So I'm going to put my hand over it, like kind of like a tent over it. I'm not going to grab it because that can cut my hand, just over it so that when I push down and cut these pieces, they don't go flying. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my jump rings, okay? Now, I don't know if you can see that. Let me zoom in a little bit there. So now I have like an offcut, and then 2 perfect little jump rings, okay? The first thing I need to do now is open them. And I need to open them so that I can sand those edges. So where I just cut, they're nice and sharp and pointy because basically I'm smushing the metal, right, to cut it. We need these to be flat so that when they're closed, they make a nice joint fit. So if I'm a jump ring right here, let me zoom back out so you guys can see. Okay, if this is a jump ring and this is my opening, I never want to open my jump ring like this. That will deform the jump ring. Instead, I'm going to take my pliers, and I'll show you in a second, and I'm going to twist them this way. or this way. So if you look at it from the top, it would look like this or that, okay? Not like that. This is not good, this way or this way. So I'm gonna take my needle nose on one side of the pliers and my round nose, or if I have another needle nose, on the other side, so that the opening is pointing away from me, the opening of the jump ring. These are a little stiff. And I'm going to twist. So now I have an opening that kind of looks like that. It's nice and twisted. Oops. Maybe make that a little bit more open so that you guys can see. Okay, so it should be a nice twist there. Now, these edges here are real sharp, so I'm going to sand them. I'm going to take my sandpaper and I'm going to put it on the edge of my table so it's nice and flat and sturdy, and then I'm going to run the edge of the jump ring on that, okay? So if I were to do this on my table, it would look something more like this, right on the edge of the table, and then I would run this. I can't do this with one hand, but I would run it there so that it makes it a little easier. So if you need help, ask an expert to help you. All right, I'm going to sand both of my jump rings, the edges, so that all edges are flat, okay? You don't need to sand the face of them or the surface of them, just the ends where you nipped. And then I'm going to close those back up, again using my pliers, just like I closed it, or just like I opened it. I'm going to twist back the other direction, and I want them to have a nice tight fit. So that should not be overlapping right there, and it shouldn't be open. You should see a nice tight fit in your jump ring. Once you've done those, you can take your jump rings that you've made and put them into your little plastic baggie for later.